Judge, I don't lose. People like me don't get told no, so let's not waste time. Name your price. Those words hit my courtroom like a slap. I was sitting in Providence Municipal Court, right where I have sat for years. Same bench, same seal on the wall, same quiet hum of nervous breathing from people waiting for their turn. And now, staring up at me with a cold smile, was a woman in a cream-colored coat that looked too expensive to belong in this room. I'm Judge Frank Caprio. I've heard every excuse. I've seen every kind of attitude. But the way this woman said it, like my courtroom was just another store she could shop in, it made my stomach tighten. She was 54 years old, tall, perfect hair, perfect makeup, the kind of look that tells you she had someone else pick out her outfit and someone else carry her bags. Her eyes were sharp, like they were always measuring what a person was worth. She didn't look scared, she didn't look sorry, she looked bored. Behind her the gallery sat stiff. People leaned forward, not sure if they heard right. Even my clerk paused with her pen in the air, and I could feel something else too. Pressure. Not from the case, not from the law. From the way she carried herself, like she had an invisible crowd behind her, whispering that she could push anyone around. I took a slow breath. I kept my face calm. I kept my voice steady. Because in my courtroom, justice is not for sale. If you believe justice should be equal for everyone, you'll want to see what happens next. The bailiff stood straight and clear, like he always does. Calling case 2026 TR 1847, State of Rhode Island versus Kendra Vale. The name sounded like money, the kind of name that ends up on charity signs and building plaques. Kendra stepped forward like she was walking a red carpet, not a courtroom floor. I looked down at the file, traffic-related charges, a crash, a complaint, and something flagged in red ink by the clerk. Possible interference in contact attempts. I looked up at her. Ms. Vale, I said, "Good morning." She gave me a thin smile. "It would be," she said, "if we can wrap this up quickly." I didn't react. I've learned not to dance to anyone else's music. "Before we begin," I said, "I want the victim to step forward." A man stood from the first row. He moved slow, like his body was still paying for something that happened. He was in his early 30s, maybe 33 or 34, short black hair, tired eyes. His hands were rough, the kind that work for a living. His name was Luis Mercado. He wore a simple blue uniform shirt. A stitched patch on the sleeve said, "Providence Delivery Co." He stood at the victim's table and held a worn baseball cap in both hands, like it was something to hold on to. I asked him, "Mr. Mercado, can you tell me why you're here today?" He swallowed. "Yes, Your Honor," he said. "I drive a delivery van. I bring food and supplies to small stores. I work early mornings. My mom is sick, so I help pay her rent and her medicine. I can't miss work much." His voice cracked on that last part, and he cleared his throat like he was embarrassed by it. I leaned forward a little. "And what happened to bring you to this court?" He looked down, then back up. "I was stopped at a light," he said. "On Washington Street. Near downtown. A car hit me from behind. Hard. My neck snapped back. I dropped my phone. The van slid forward. I hit the curb." He touched the side of his neck without thinking. "My boss said my van was out for repairs for 2 weeks," he went on. "I lost shifts, I lost tips, and I had to pay for a doctor visit because my insurance, it's not great." I could hear the room soften around him. People understand struggle. They feel it because they've lived it. Then I looked at Kendra. She was leaning back like she was waiting for a waiter to bring her a menu. Her nails were glossy. Her bag on the table looked designer. It had that clean leather smell you only get when something is brand new and overpriced. I said, "Ms. Vale, do you understand what Mr. Mercado is saying?" She shrugged. "I understand he's upset," she said, "but he's exaggerating. People do that." A few heads in the gallery turned. A woman in the back made a quiet sound, like she couldn't help it. I kept my voice even. "Ms. Vale," I said, "this is a courtroom. People here speak with respect. That includes you." She smiled again, like my words were a joke. "Of course, Judge," she said. "Respect. Right." And then she added, just loud enough for everyone to hear, "I've been in rooms with much more important people than this." That was the first disrespect moment. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't slam my gavel. I just looked at her. "Ms. Vale," I said, "I'm going to warn you one time. In this courtroom, we don't rank people. Everyone here matters. You, Mr. Mercado, the clerk, the bailiff, the folks sitting in the back row. If you can't act like that's true, you're going to have a problem today." Her smile tightened, but she said nothing. The bailiff shifted his weight. The gallery went still again, and I opened the file wider, because I could already tell this case wasn't just about a crash, it was about power, and someone trying to bend the room. I began Act 2 the way I always do, step by step, facts first, feelings later. "Ms. Vale," I said, "the charge says you were following too close and hit Mr. Mercado's vehicle at a red light. Do you plead responsible or not responsible?" She lifted her chin. "Not responsible," she said. "Obviously." I nodded. "All right," I said. "Then we take testimony. Mr. Mercado, I'm going to ask you some more questions." Luis explained again where he was stopped, how long the light had been red, and how the impact felt. He spoke carefully, not dramatic, just honest. Then I turned to Kendra. "Ms. Vale," I said, "tell me what happened from your point of view." She sighed, like I was asking her to remember an old password. "I was driving," she said. "Traffic was annoying. He stopped suddenly. I tapped him. That's it." "A tap," I repeated. "Yes," she said, "a tap." I looked down at the file again, and I said, "All right, evidence number 1. My clerk handed up a printed photo set. "These are photographs taken at the scene," I said, holding them up so the room could see. "Mr. Mercado's van has a crushed rear door. The bumper is pushed in. Your front grille is cracked." I let that hang in the air. "A tap doesn't do this," I said. Kendra rolled her eyes. "Photos can be misleading," she said. "Angles, lighting, you know how it is." I said, "No, Ms. Vale, I know how damage works." The gallery gave a small ripple of sound, not loud, just that quiet shared reaction of people thinking, "Finally." Kendra leaned toward her lawyer, whispering. The lawyer looked like he wanted to disappear into his suit. I asked, "Do you have anything else to support your claim that this was minor?" Kendra pointed toward Luis, right there in open court. "He's acting like a saint," she said, "but I saw his van. It's old. He probably wanted an excuse to fix it for free." Luis's face changed. Hurt, then anger, then shame all mixed together. I stepped in fast. "Ms. Vale," I said, "you do not attack the victim to cover your own actions. That is your second warning." She held up a hand. "Relax," she said. "I'm just being honest." I looked at the calendar on my desk. I looked at the notes in the file again. Now we moved into confrontation number 2. Because the crash was one thing, but the pressure, that was something else. I said, "Ms. Vale, before today, did anyone from your side contact the court or court staff?" Her eyes flicked, just for a second. "No," she said. "Why would they?" I nodded slowly. "Evidence number 2, I said. We have call logs and text messages." Now the whole room leaned in. I said, "My clerk received 3 phone calls yesterday afternoon from a blocked number. The caller asked for my schedule, asked if I was open to a meeting. Then a text was sent to a staff phone that said, quote, 'We can make this easy for everyone. Keep it quiet.'" Kendra's smile disappeared. Her lawyer turned his head sharp, like he didn't know that was coming. I watched Kendra closely. She didn't look confused. She didn't look surprised. She looked annoyed that she got caught. I said, "Ms. Vale, do you want to explain that?" She leaned forward and put her hands on the table. "Judge," she said, "I'm not from around here. I have security concerns. I like things handled privately." I said, "This is a public court." She spoke faster. "I'm a public figure," she said. "People take pictures. People twist stories. I wanted a simple conversation so this doesn't become a circus. I stared at her. Ms. Vale, I said, this court is not your living room, and my staff is not your personal team. You don't call them from blocked numbers asking for meetings. She narrowed her eyes. Let's be real, she said. You know exactly who I am. There it was, the name drop without a name. The gallery shifted again. Some people whispered. A man in the back shook his head. I said, it doesn't matter who you are. She smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It always matters, she said. That's the whole world. I pointed down at the file. Not in here, I said. In here, your actions matter. Your words matter. Your respect matters. Her lawyer cleared his throat, trying to save it. Your Honor, he said, my client may have had someone reach out without understanding procedure. We apologize. I looked at Kendra. Do you apologize? I asked. She paused, then said the word like it tasted bad. Sorry, she said, but her eyes said, not really. Now, confrontation number 3 came fast, like a storm rolling in. Because when someone is used to winning, the moment they feel cornered, they often swing hard. I said, Mr. Mercado, I want to ask about your medical visit. Do you have paperwork? Luis nodded and held up a folded envelope. Yes, Your Honor, he said. I brought my receipt and the note from the clinic. The clerk took it and handed it to me. It was real. It was simple. It was the kind of paper that costs a working person a week of groceries. I read the amount out loud. $246, I said. Luis nodded. Yes, sir, he said softly. That was just the first visit. Kendra laughed, not a chuckle, a real laugh. That's pocket change, she said. The gallery snapped to attention. A woman gasped. Luis's jaw tightened. I felt my patience thinning, but I held it. Ms. Vale, I said, control yourself. She leaned back and waved her hand. I'm sorry, she said, but we're acting like this is life or death. People get bumped every day. He'll be fine. Luis suddenly spoke, and it surprised even him. My mom won't be fine, he said. If I can't work, she can't eat right. She can't get her medicine. That matters. Kendra looked at him like he was dirt on her shoe. Then maybe, she said, you should get a better job. The courtroom went dead. No coughs, no whispers, just air. I watched Luis. His eyes were wet, but he held it in like he had been doing that his whole life. And that's when I said, evidence number 3. The bailiff brought a tablet forward. We have a video, I said, from a storefront camera near the intersection. Kendra's face changed for the first time, not fear, but alarm. I played it. The screen showed Luis's van stopped at the light. The light was red, cars were still. Then Kendra's car came fast, closing the gap like the driver wasn't paying attention at all. No brake lights until the last second. Then the hit. The van jolted, but the video didn't stop there. The camera had sound, and in the seconds after the crash, Kendra stepped out of her car and shouted toward Luis. I heard her voice through the tinny speaker. You people never learn. Move your junk box out of my way. The room reacted like a wave. People murmured. One man said, wow. Another said, no way. Luis stared at the screen like he was watching his own humiliation. Kendra snapped. That's edited. I said, it is not edited. She pointed at me. You can't prove that, she said. I said, Ms. Vale, it's a single camera clip from a store system. The store owner provided it. The timestamp matches the police report, and your face is in it. Kendra's breathing got quicker. Then she did something that turned the whole case into something bigger. She stood up, not because I told her to. She stood like she was about to deliver a speech to the nation, and she looked straight at me. Now we hit the viral moment. She said loud and clear, Judge Caprio, don't pretend you're immune. I can make one phone call and turn your little courtroom into your last job. So either you dismiss this, or you'll be explaining to the whole country why you targeted me. For 10 seconds, nobody moved. It was like time froze. I could hear the lights buzzing over our heads. I could hear a pen drop somewhere behind me. Then the gallery erupted. Not screaming, but shock sounds. Out loud disbelief. A storm of whispers. The bailiff stepped forward, ready. My clerk's eyes went wide. And me? I felt my face change, not with anger like fire, with something colder. A line had been crossed, not just against me, against the idea of the court itself. I leaned forward slowly. I said, "Miss Vale, sit down." She didn't. She smiled again, like she thought she had won. That's when Act 3 began. I kept my voice quiet, because quiet can be heavier than shouting. "Kendra Vale," I said, "you just threatened this court." I let her name land in the room. "Kendra Vale," I said again, "you just told me justice depends on who can make a phone call." She scoffed. "That's reality," she said. I shook my head. "No," I said. "That might be your reality. That might be what you've seen. That might even be what you've paid for in other places. But that is not my courtroom." I turned slightly and looked at Luis. "Mr. Mercado," I said, "thank you for standing here today. I know it's hard to sit in the same room with someone who talks down to you." Luis nodded once, still holding his cap tight. Then I faced her again. "Kendra Vale," I said, "I want you to answer me. When you said, 'Name your price,' what did you mean?" She lifted her chin. "I meant I can donate," she said. "I can help. I can make problems go away." I repeated her words back to her, slow. "Make problems go away." I looked around the courtroom. "Do you hear how that sounds?" I asked. "Like this court is a stain on your shoe." Then I asked her hard questions. "Kendra Vale, did you ever think about how Luis Mercado lives? Did you ever think about what 2 weeks of lost work does to a family? Did you ever think about what it feels like to be called you people in the street after you get hit?" She rolled her shoulders. "He'll survive," she said. I nodded. "Yes," I said, "he will. Because people like Mr. Mercado have been surviving their whole lives. They survive late bills. They survive broken cars. They survive sickness in the family. They survive being spoken to like they're less." I leaned in more. "But what I'm wondering is this," I said. "Can you survive hearing no?" Her eyes flashed. "This is ridiculous," she said. I said, "No. What's ridiculous is thinking your name is a shield. What's ridiculous is thinking my job is to protect your image." I paused, then I said it plain. "Kendra Vale, you disrespected a working man who came here for help. You disrespected court staff by trying to contact them in secret, and then you disrespected me and this court by threatening my job." I let the silence sit. Then I asked, "Do you understand why that is serious?" For the first time, her voice got smaller, but only for a second. I was upset," she said. I said, "Upset doesn't give you a license to be cruel." I looked at Luis again. "Mr. Mercado," I asked, "what do you want today?" Luis swallowed. "I just want my medical costs covered," he said, "and I want her to stop acting like I'm nothing." I nodded. "That's not too much," I said. Then I turned back to her. "Kendra Vale," I said, "you said a moment ago people like me don't get told no." I held her eyes. "Today you will." Act 4 came next. Sentencing. But I did it in stages, so every part meant something. "Kendra Vale," I said, "first, the financial penalty." She crossed her arms. I said, "You will pay a fine of $1,200. That covers the unsafe driving charge, the court costs, and a penalty for your attempt to contact court staff improperly." Her eyes widened slightly. I continued, "You will also pay Mr. Mercado restitution. Restitution means paying back the money your actions caused. You will pay $246 for his clinic visit, and you will pay an additional $700 for lost wages based on the documents from his employer." Her lawyer started to speak, but I raised my hand. "Second," I said, "your license." Kendra scoffed. "You can't be serious." I said, "I am serious. Your license will be suspended for 60 days. After that, you may drive only if you complete a safe driving course and provide proof to this court." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. "Third," I said, "community service." Now she leaned forward. "Community service?" For a fender bender? I said, not just for the crash, for the way you treated people. I looked at my notes. You will complete 100 hours of community service, I said. Not whenever you feel like it. On a schedule. I spoke clearly, so there was no confusion. Every Saturday for 8 weeks, I said, you will report to the Providence Community Food Center, 8 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. That is 6.5 hours each Saturday, with a short break. That totals 52 hours. She stared at me. Every Wednesday, I said, for 6 weeks, you will report to the same location from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. That totals 24 hours. I kept going. And the remaining 24 hours, I said, you will complete by assisting with deliveries to homebound seniors through the court-approved outreach program. You will not drive, you will ride along and carry boxes, you will knock on doors, you will look people in the eye. Kendra's face turned tight. I added, a supervisor will sign your hours each shift. Those forms come back to this court. If you miss even one shift without a medical emergency, you will be back in front of me. Fourth, I said, public accountability. Kendra shook her head. This is insane. I said, no, this is responsibility. You will write a handwritten apology, I said, to Mr. Mercado, not typed, not printed, handwritten, 1 full page. You will include the words, I was wrong and I will do better. Luis blinked, stunned. I said, you will also record a 60-second public service message for a local high school driver's program. Her lawyer snapped his head. A message? I nodded. A message, I said. You will say on camera, I made a mistake. I thought I was above others. I was not. The court will review it before it is used. Kendra's mouth dropped open. And finally, I said, special conditions. I looked right at her. Kendra Vale, you will not contact any court staff directly again, I said. If you need something, your lawyer files it properly. You will not send messages through friends, assistants, or blocked numbers. If I see anything like that, I will treat it as contempt. Contempt is a simple word for a serious thing. It means disrespecting the court in a way that blocks justice. Kendra leaned forward and hissed, you're doing this because you want attention. That was it. The bailiff took 1 step closer. I said, Kendra Vale, you are now in contempt of court for that statement and for the threat you made on the record. Her lawyer stood up fast. Your Honor, please. I raised my hand. Bailiff, I said, take her into custody. The room sucked in a breath. The bailiff moved to her side. Kendra pulled back like she couldn't believe anyone would touch her. Don't you dare, she said. The bailiff said calm, ma'am, turn around. She refused. I said, Ms. Vale, if you resist, it gets worse. Turn around. For a second, she looked like she might fight the whole room. Then she turned, stiff and shaking. The sound of the cuffs was loud in that quiet court, metal on metal, a sound that says, you are not in charge anymore. I said, you will spend 24 hours in custody, not because I enjoy it, because you need to understand that power doesn't erase consequences. I looked at the calendar again. You will return for a review hearing on Case 2026 TR 1847 in 2 weeks, I said. Same courtroom, same seat, and you will speak with respect. Kendra's eyes were burning, but she didn't speak. The bailiff guided her out. Luis stood there, frozen. I turned to him. Mr. Mercado, I said, I want you to hear me. You did the right thing coming here. This court is for you too. Luis nodded, and a tear finally slipped down his cheek. He wiped it fast, like he didn't want anyone to see. Act 5 came with time. 2 weeks later, I sat in the same seat again. Kendra walked in slower this time. No designer bag on the table, no smile. Her hair was still neat, but the shine of control was gone. She stood where she was told. I said, Kendra Vale, how are your hours? Her lawyer handed up papers. I read them. She had completed 36 hours already, on time, signed, verified. I looked up. Did you write the apology? I asked. Her lawyer handed up an envelope. I opened it and read the first line. Mr. Mercado, I was wrong. My eyebrows lifted. Because it was real handwriting, not a perfect note, not a publicist's words. It was messy, like a human being wrote it. I looked at Kendra. Kendra Vale, I said. Did you write this yourself? She nodded once. Yes, she said quietly. I said, do you understand why your words in court were so dangerous? She swallowed. Yes, she said. Because I tried to make the court afraid of me. I leaned back. That's right, I said, and courts cannot be afraid. If a court is afraid, the people lose. Luis was there again, sitting in the front row. He looked healthier, still tired, but not as crushed. I asked him, Mr. Mercado, did you receive the apology? He nodded. Yes, Your Honor, he said, and she paid what she owed. I looked at Kendra. I said, you have a long way to go, but today I see the first step. Then I said, finish your service, make the PSA, and remember this feeling the next time you think your name makes you bigger than the room. Kendra nodded again. I will, she said. The courtroom breathed out. Later, after the room emptied, I stayed at my bench for a moment. I looked at the empty chairs. I looked at the seal on the wall. I thought about Luis, holding his cap like a lifeline. I thought about Kendra, standing stiff in cuffs, shocked that rules could reach her. And I thought about the simple truth that keeps this place standing. Justice is not a favor. Dignity is not a gift from the rich to the poor. In my courtroom, every person gets the same measure, because the minute we start selling respect, we start losing who we are. I tapped my gavel once, soft, just to myself, and I whispered the final line I wish the whole world could hear. In this court, your title means nothing if your heart is empty.